got distracted in the 8 o'clock hour, didn't necessarily get around the SEC. We'll give you updates from camps after we visit with Ralph Russo, who is taking on a little bit of a different role this year. We'll move on to Ralph here in just a moment. But first, Greg, if you're moving into a new home, out of a new home, or just need a piece of furniture moved around your current home, who do you need to call?
That'd be Crocker Moving Service. They're a local company owned by an Iraq War veteran, Eric Crocker. Crocker believes in hiring movers you can trust to complete full background checks and run drug tests on every single employee. These are good guys, and you can trust them in your home. When they need your whole home packed up and moved, your company headquarters moved across country, or you just want them to come rearrange your living room, they also got you covered. They also do deliveries for furniture that you've purchased and need to get to your home. So call or visit them online today for a free quote. The website is crockermovingservices.com. That's crockermovingservices.com. Support your veterans by choosing Crocker Moving Service for your next move.
Ralph Russo in a little bit of a different spot this year heading into the AP poll, which was released yesterday. First, Ralph, you go from sort of the organizer, the overseer, to now a voter in the AP poll. How's it been different for you the last couple of weeks?
Well, it's still busy. It's not quite as busy and stressful. That's a good thing. Overseeing that thing and making sure it publishes is, I guess, it can be a little stressful and certainly a lot of work. Putting a ballot together is a lot of work too, especially if you want to do it well. And frankly, I think what happens with the first one, you have so much time to do it and you want to be diligent. You want to do a lot of research. You probably end up overthinking it, or at least I think I did. I probably overthought it a little bit, but it's fine. You come out where you do. It's been definitely a different experience, a little bit of a weird experience to be on the other side of the fence, but also pretty fun. I would say, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. Maybe I won't be quite as enthusiastic on a 3 a.m. Sunday night when I'm pouring through box scores and highlights trying to fill out my ballot. But right now, for the first one, it was pretty cool.
What did you have the hardest time with when you're trying to kind of line these things up? What was the toughest decision you had to make?
So the two factors that really complicated this one, at the very top of the ballot, which is the most important part, you have the most talented teams in the country. If you look at their rosters, most of those teams, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, let's say Notre Dame, let's say Oregon, have some kind of question mark with their quarterback situation, right? Even Texas to a certain degree, but relative, right? So you end up lining this up and you say, well, Arch is a new starter, but in the big picture, he's been there for 2 years. He's a 5-star. He's played a little bit. Like, he's still got more experience than Julian Sayin, than Gunnar Stockton, though Stockton has notable experience, right? So that complicates things when you have these very good rosters that could be undermined by quarterback uncertainty. Even Dante Moore, he played a full season at UCLA, but that didn't go very well, and that was 2 years ago. So that makes the top hard, and it also, I think, benefits teams like Penn State and Clemson, because you can tell me you don't like Drew Aller or you don't like Cade Klubnik, but at least you know what you're going to get, right? There's a certain floor ceiling there that you feel comfortable with. So that was tricky. And right after that group of teams, about 8 or 9 teams, man, once you get to 10, you find yourself thinking, like, nobody should be 10. Right. Like, I think in the actual poll, it was Miami, and I'm not that high on Miami. I think I had them 15 in mine. Like, I just felt like anybody I put 10 through 14 looked wrong. I ended up with like A&M at 10, and like, you can come at me and be like, A&M at 10, that sounds crazy. Like then who else, right? Then Miami, then Michigan, then maybe Florida. Like, all of those teams in that range seemed like a bad fit. So I thought that was the other challenge too. Like, I'm putting these teams in that range and thinking, like, this doesn't feel like the 10th or 11th best team in the country.
I want to go back to sort of your time when you had a different role with the AP than you do right now in putting this together. What was the most difficult task? Maybe not for you personally in coming up with who you thought should be where, like you are now, but just organizing it. Is it making sure the votes get in on time? Is it trying to make sure everybody had their votes correct? If somebody needed to go back and put a different team in a different place, Right, what's the biggest relief that you're not having to manage right now that you did for so many years?
Yeah, there definitely is the hurting. And listen, people are very diligent. There's usually 60. I think the voting panel basically range from 61 or 2 to about 65, depending on the year. It moved around a little bit because occasionally we would add voters, sort of on a national level. But for the most part, that was the basic number. And it's an exercise in herding cats to a certain degree. Everybody's got a job, right? Like, this is not the voters' job. They're media members who cover college football. They're traveling on Saturdays, or they're moving around and doing their actual job. So this is a volunteer gig. I'm sure I'm going to feel that too at this year when I'm covering college football from week to week. So making sure everybody votes correctly is a good point too. Because again, you're filling out your ballot at 3 a.m. and, oh my God, I left Kansas State off, just because I'm moving teams around. So we're trying to help the voters with quality control, and picking voters got a little tougher too as the media landscape shrank, right? There's just not as many newspapers, not as many people, just generally speaking, covering the sport. So all of a sudden you found yourself thinking I could really use an extra voter in this state, and there's just not as many to choose from. So those were the things that end up being, again, administratively, there was a lot there, and it just was on top of my job as a reporter.
I would imagine it's very difficult. I actually think you guys did a pretty good job this year. There's a couple I disagree with, but I honestly feel like all in all, it's pretty solid, especially with so many teams that feel bunched up between, say, 15 and 35. The one that I had the biggest disagreement on was SC. They're sitting there at 30, according to you guys. I have them at 11. I look at how many close calls they had last year. I look at what returns, the progress that's likely to be made from year 1 to year 2 defensively. SC, I think, is probably a fairly polarizing team. Where did you stand with SC, and how close did they get to cracking your top 25?
So I did not have them ranked, and I did not have them all that close. They were definitely in my consideration pool, but I don't want to get too bogged down in my process, though I wrote about it on The Athletic, and you guys can read it if you want. I sort of used some computer power ratings as my guide to creating a pool of the top 40 teams, tiered them off, and then started moving them around because, you can't just, if they wanted a computer to vote, they would just use a computer, right? They want me to vote. So I sort of moved things around and had a couple of different criteria on which I leaned on. And without question, the power rankings suggests exactly what you said, and I was on that last year too. I remember getting into some arguments about people hey, nobody's counting USC as a quality win in the Big Ten, but if you look, they are pretty good, and they just keep losing a lot of close games. So here's what I would say. I'm with you in that they were on. I kind of want to see them prove it. I'm a little skeptical about the offensive line coming into this season, and we'll see how the defense projects. I think the greater problem with USC, and I'll speak for the whole voting panel, even though, I'm really, it was just my problem. I think USC has burned us a lot lately. So I just wonder if a lot of folks are a little bit timid or passive about this idea of I don't want to buy in on USC. Let Lincoln prove it to me before I just put my money on USC, or I put my vote on USC.
It's usually thought process, G-Mac.
It is, and it makes perfect sense. Did you notice the same thing where there really were, and I feel like this year was maybe tougher to put together a top 25 than ever. I look at 15 to 35 like I referenced, and I feel like it's as interchangeable as it's ever been. I do think there's a separation from the top 4. I think the 5 through 10 are pretty interchangeable. I'm kind of fine with whatever direction you decide to head. I think 11 through 15 are about right. And I think 15 through 35, I could make a case for any of those 20 teams to be in the top 25. Did you have a similar feel as you were putting yours together?
Generally, yes. But so where that came into play for me, especially because, if you look at my ballot compared to the poll, my like 11, 12, 13 is very different from the polls, because I am really not buying in totally on Illinois. I am not totally buying in on Arizona State. I am a little more skeptical of South Carolina and Ole Miss, Tennessee, those teams that were sort of in that range in the polls. Well, maybe not Tennessee. Tennessee definitely took the hit after the Nico situation. And listen, I understand there's some Vol fans who are like not thrilled about that, but I think it's not so much, not to get too down the rabbit hole, I don't think it's so much that people thought Nico was going to be great, as much as I think they're getting worse at quarterback. Like, I think, even if Nico wasn't going to be a star, I don't think they're going to get better at quarterback. So anyway, getting back to your point, yes, I think that I found myself sort of leaning into the metrics and leaning into returning production and returning starters, but I could definitely find myself looking at who was a good one. Like, I ended up having Louisville in the poll instead of Tennessee, right? But I could have also, I think, found myself looking at like Iowa State. I didn't have Iowa, was sort of on my list of maybe they should be in. And that's why USC, I kind of constantly found myself bouncing back to USC, thinking like the numbers suggest I should have this team ranked, there really doesn't seem to be that much difference between USC and SMU. And SMU is another one that was sort of in that middle of the teens that I don't know if I'm really buying in on SMU this year as much as last year. So there was definitely a lot of teams where I found myself thinking, I got to have 25 teams here. So even if I don't love Illinois, they certainly deserve a spot on this ballot.
I think most folks would understand that and get that. I want to hear from you and your mindset going in, and what your conversations have been like over the years of movement in the polls. And you haven't really had to do it much yet, obviously being a voter this time and haven't been in the past. How do you suspect you'll handle that specifically early, Ralph? Because that's one thing Greg and I have said, that I think my biggest complaint with the polls has always been refusal to move teams that lose early. It's like you want to prove yourself right a lot of the times. Did you hear much of that from people in the past, and what have you told yourself that you want to try to be moving forward?
So I don't know if it's much of conversations with people as much as having been so involved in the poll for 20 years, I would see patterns, right? I would notice sort of anecdotally and even maybe looking through research some patterns. And I actually found over the 20 years that I did it, that voters were a little more likely to be aggressive early in the season than they were when I first started doing it 20 years ago, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they maybe are as aggressive as they should be, but I did sense in doing it for 20 years that they had become more likely to say, listen, early season, I'm going to be bold here, right? There was a meaningful game, and I'm going to move some teams around. And I don't know if I'm going to be quite that aggressive, because I do wonder if what you end up doing is, and listen, it's early in the season, so you could always correct it, right? The results take you where the season goes. So I do respect the idea of being aggressive early, because you can just make up for it later. But I do then find myself thinking, like, do you end up overcorrecting early in the season based on low information games, right? Like, Georgia Tech and BC both beat Florida State early last year, jumped into the rankings, and because we thought that was a good win, right? I think that you have to be hesitant to, what do you do with these big games, right? We're going to have 3 top 10 games the first weekend of the season. I almost guarantee by the end of the year, not all 6 of those teams will be top 10 teams, right? At least 1 or 2 of them will probably, hit the skids a little bit and, maybe be unranked or hit the back of the poll. But how much do you want to punish a team like Miami if it loses to Notre Dame or vice versa, right? How much do you want to punish Clemson and the loser of Clemson LSU So I think that's the balance. Like, you're not going into this thing with no information. So I think the idea of like, hey, you need to throw out your preseason, your preseason impressions. Yeah, but like not too much early in the season. If you throw it out completely, like you could end up looking a little silly in a few weeks when you've dropped a team 15 spots because they lost to another good team.
Finally, as you kind of look at the depth of the SEC, the depth of the Big Ten as reflected on the rankings, and look, I appreciate very much your willingness to change and adjust and adapt on the fly. I don't think we do enough of that. I also think it's a burden to have to completely rearrange and start from scratch every week. So I appreciate all that are willing to do this. But I look at this kind of depth of the SEC, for example, and the fact that Auburn is currently 38th to me is crazy. I think they should be much higher than that. What league is stronger, in your opinion, top to bottom right now?
Oh, the SEC is stronger top to bottom. I mean, that is always going to be the SEC's, the SEC's advantage. Its secret sauce is the fact that its 12th best team is almost certainly better than anybody else's 12th best team. We also go down the rabbit hole sometimes with that to a degree where does it matter if the SEC's 12th best team is better than the Big Ten's 12th best team when we are comparing their fourth best teams, right? Like how much do you want to put weight on the fact that let me pull the names out of here. Who would be about the 10th or 11th? Like, let's just say if Auburn is better, and I think, I think Auburn, somebody asked me who is the most likely 5-win team from last year to make the playoff, and I think it's Auburn. Like, if I was looking for a team that could go from losing record to the playoff this year, I think Auburn is probably my pick. I probably underrated them. Their offensive line, I don't know. You tell me, Cole. Their offensive line looks like it could be pretty damn good. But is Auburn being substantially better than Wisconsin? Is that important when we're sort of more so looking at comparing teams at the top of the conference? It's certainly pertinent, right? It's not meaningless because that's who you're playing. But I don't know if I want to get too bogged down in that conversation that I lose track of the real conversation, which is the teams at the top being compared to one another when it comes to playoff time.
Did you have a lot of difficulty with your top five? Because I feel like there's 1, 2, maybe 3 that I would feel really good about, and then it would get really confusing for me after that.
No, not too much. I knew my top 5 was going to be I was pretty bought in on Texas's number 1. I think they have questions, but I like their answers to those questions. I have a lot of confidence in Kyle Flood to rebuild the offensive line, which they've recruited well. Got to have a fair amount of confidence in Arch. So I was pretty locked in on Texas. Penn State, I kind of gave the number 2 because they have more returning, but I knew they would be in that top 5. I've got Alabama 3, which I know is weird. What? It's weird to think of Alabama as being undervalued, but I just think that their results of last season are skewing the opinion, and people are not looking at what they have coming back. They might have the best offensive and defensive lines in the country coming back. So I know they have questions at quarterback, but again, it's odd to say Alabama is being undervalued. So I knew Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Penn State, Texas was going to be my top 5.
Okay.
In some order, right? So I was comfortable with that. So I guess, you talk about are you comfortable with the top 5? Yeah, but my top 5 was a little different than everybody else's because I'm buying in on Bama.
Did you struggle with sort of newcomers, I guess? Let's say Texas Tech. A lot of people think it'll be really good this year. I don't know what to make of Texas Tech right now because there's going to be so much that's so new. But teams like that maybe haven't been in this spot for a while. How difficult was it for you to sort of rank them?
Yeah, without question. Again, to a certain degree, that's the most speculative. Those are the most speculative picks, right? Yeah. Listen, I try to do things taking a little of the subjectivity out, use some numbers, use some criteria. At a certain point, though, there's going to be a little vibes here, right? And you're going to trust that, wow, the portal haul looks pretty good, right? This is a team that the question becomes, can they all come together and actually be a team? But relative to the rest of the talent in the Big 12, this looks like a pretty darn good team that could be, I've been getting a bunch of emails from Texas Tech fans talking about what does an SEC roster look like in the Big 12. I don't know if they quite have an SEC roster, but the roster looks pretty good. And I think once you hit that 20 to 25 area, you are going to have to make some, again, sort of incorporate some vibes and just be a little speculative, because there's nothing, as Greg said, there's not a lot that's going to separate 22 from 33.
All right, before I let you go, Greg McElroy has been getting a lot of praise from Alabama fans the last 24 hours for all the nice things that he said. We can reverse that by you sharing with us all the really nice things he said about Texas in your article that came out today.
Yeah, I decided I needed a former quarterback's opinion, somebody with a little experience about when it comes to both Alabama and Texas. Because what I wrote is that Texas is the new Alabama. And what I meant by that is they're not going to win 6 national championships. Nobody's ever going to do what Nick Saban did. But I think that Texas seems to be moving into a phase where they are ready to sort of produce a national championship contender every year. And I think this year is the test of that, right? Because they do have some uncertainty, and yet they're still number one. I think Sark has sort of built this program in a way that they look like Alabama, that they look like Georgia, which essentially was Kirby taking the Alabama blueprint and transferring it to Athens, right? So it was great for Greg, because Greg, talked me down a little bit and said some nice things about Alabama, saying hey, listen, Alabama is not going away, because is it a zero-sum game? In other words, can Texas move into Alabama's spot and displace Alabama, which is essentially the hypothesis that I'm putting forth. Greg sort of talked me down from that. And again, his experience from both sides of the fence there, being an Alabama quarterback and being an Austin guy, or a Texas guy, I thought was really invaluable. So I appreciate you talking me down, Greg, and maybe making me look a little bit less like an idiot in that column.
Well, Texas, I really believe this. They will win a national championship, but to assume that Alabama is on the verge of replacement, I am absolutely not willing to go that far, because while, yes, Texas's resources are second to none, the culture that we have created in the great state of Alabama will not allow Alabama to fail. It's too important to our livelihood, that's for sure.
And I'm interested to see how it does turn out this year too, because again, I'm a guy who's just voted Alabama number 3 in the poll, right? So that roster is really stacked. I just wonder, my gut says if I give Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb some talented quarterbacks and some talented receivers, that's going to work out okay. I think there's a longer term, bigger picture question still to be answered about whether Kalen can recruit in the SEC in the way that is necessary, especially at a time when Alabama is not going to get the quote unquote Saban discount anymore, right? Where kids basically say oh, I just got to come play for Saban because he's going to get me to the NFL, right? So that becomes gone, and in a world where the talent is probably dispersed a little more thinly across a lot of teams, what does that look like for Alabama? And as you referenced before, at a time when money becomes a bigger factor than any other time, you're right. It's not like Alabama is poor here. They're not a poor school, but can they match up with schools that maybe have a little more resources and can tap into a little bit more revenue through basically, donors and big businesses within their towns? So I do think it's an interesting time for Alabama, and where they are compared to Texas will be pretty interesting to play out over the next couple of years. Yeah, but as you said, the idea that Alabama might disappear or be replaced, maybe that's a bit extreme. Though I might have suggested it.
No. Ralph, great stuff, man. Thanks so much. It's cool to get your insight on how you voted, why you voted, and then how you have viewed this process for so long before actually becoming a voter this year. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Well, we'd love to do it again soon.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate Ralph Russo sticking to the script there on the Higginbotham hotline, not trying to ad-lib any of his answers because
I hope he got – did you email him the script?
Yes.
Perfect.
He had it. Yeah, there's no ad-libbing on this show unless you're by yourself, and then you have to.
3 hours of copy.
That's it.
It's just got to –
right off the teleprompter that we don't have. But yes, one way or the other, it works. Kind of like yours.
Be a great investment.
It would. Kind of like your CBD store. It always works there. I can try to ad-lib a CBD read for you guys and tell them that they're the largest brick-and-mortar CBD retailer in the world. If you have arthritis or anxiety, you or your pet, they have products that can help you with that. Help your daily routine like better focus, more energy throughout the course of the day. How about weight loss? The Trim by SunMed on the shelves now at your CBD store. First company to have USDA certified organic oil supplements. And they even have 3 locations with great customer service for you. Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver, Trustville just off 459, your CBD store where good health hits home. All right, we'll go around the SEC. Haven't really had a chance to do that yet this show as we got sidetracked. We got off script in the 8 o'clock hour.
That's what
Essentially what happens. When you try to ad-lib, that's what happens. Things go south. We'll bring it back north next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning.
Get him out of the hole, everybody.
It's 9:30, Tuesday, August 12th, right here on Jocks. And I tell you, you think about going around the SEC and kind of what's happening in camp. We know now that Ty Simpson is going to be the starter at Alabama. Also, some good news for UAB. They get not only a commitment, but a signature from Colorado transfer offensive tackle Peyton Kirkland. Signed with UAB. He was committed to Miami of Ohio earlier this offseason. Before he was at Colorado, he was at Texas. So third, fourth, however you want to count it with commitments, school, but UAB getting a real talent there at offensive tackle and could bolster that offensive line for Trent Dilfer moving forward. How are things going in Austin, Texas for Steve Sarkisian right now, Damian? Let's go check in with Sark.
Our guys just practiced their asses off. It was awesome. So that's that.
Okay. There it is.
Got him.
Sounds like Texas doing good. Any questions coming out of there?
That's all I needed to hear.
We're good. Okay. Texas looking like they're going to have things figured out. They have had some injuries on the offensive line. Unfortunately, that depth, Greg, is going to be tested, and that's probably, dare I say, our biggest concern with the Longhorns right now?
Without question it is. And I said this yesterday. I don't know how they're ranked number 1. Like I'm not saying they shouldn't be top 5. I think they have maybe the fewest questions and the highest ceiling in the SEC. I'm fine with that. But they shouldn't be ranked number 1 based on the question marks. Ohio State shouldn't be 3 based on the question marks. Like if you really look at it, the fact that Ohio State's 3 and Texas is 1 to me is backwards. Now we can be optimistic about Arch. We can love their roster. We can love their personnel, wide receiver, and on the defense. They got stars all over the defense. Like you can love parts of their team, but there are teams out there with much more proven production at very important places, a la Clemson, a la Penn State. I'm just having a hard time. Like, is this number 1 ranking based almost exclusively on the hype surrounding Arch? It has to be.
Not exclusively. No, don't say that. That's way off script.
I think
don't do that.
I'm not. It's not a knock. It's just the reality. I just think that they're getting credit for things that are very much a question, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. I just acknowledge that there are legitimate questions surrounding them.
Yeah, I don't know if they're getting credit. I do think from the Arch perspective, there are different positions that are going to help people outweigh concerns other places. Let's talk about LSU's offensive line concerns that we have, which are very real.
100%.
But they have Garrett Nussmeier.
They're also ranked 9th. Big difference between being numero uno.
No, I get it. I get it. I think the one word that you mentioned that probably is aiding where a lot of people view Texas, and I'll just say this, Texas would not be my number 1 team right now.
No.
My number 1 team would be very easy, and it wouldn't be Texas. I would have
State or Clemson?
Clemson would be number one for me.
That's who I'd have number one.
And I'd probably have Penn State 2. And then it would get a little bit more discombobulated after that as to who would be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But when you look at Ryan Wingo, you look at Colin Simmons, what Wisner did last year, Baxter coming back, Ethan Burke going to be back. We know Anthony Hill Jr. We love him. Michael Taft back in the secondary. I think there are enough proven commodities and then enough still that people look at, all right, they were just scratching the surface last year. It allows them, and Arch Manning is going to be that for multiple reasons. One, we've seen him make some plays in games, and then two, the last name, yes, is going to help extend that. But I don't think they're there. I don't even think they're there mostly because of him. I think they're there mostly because of how they've recruited, what they've done the last few years, and you lose your starting quarterback, but he's the guy now?
Right.
Yeah, we'll put them there. But I think it's more of the guys we've seen a little bit of that everybody just thinks are going to have a chance to be great. Maybe I know too much, and I'm giving people too much credit. And it is what you say. We will never really know. But I think it's that people look at this roster and say, man, they got 3, 4 guys that could be top 3, top 5 at their positions by the end of the season.
Yes.
Like Wingo could be that. Simmons could be that. Anthony Hill is already that. Maybe even Trey Moore, how he's utilizing a different way this year, could end up being that. Wisner could end up being that, and they obviously think Arch Manning could be that. I'm not going to say that I think he's going to be there just yet. But the O-line concerns are very real. And while they did address the middle of the defensive line concerns again, it doesn't just mean it's going to work as well as it did last year. Those guys last year were great.
Yes.
And probably don't get enough credit for how good they were inside last year. Vernon Broughton was awesome for that defense last year.
They were great.
And no one talked about him. They did, I'm not going to say they did exactly what Sweat and those guys did the year before, but they were pretty darn close. Well, that was 2 years ago.
There wasn't a huge drop-off.
Yeah, it wasn't near the drop-off we thought it was going to be. But it doesn't also just mean it's going to happen that way again this year. So I'm with you. Texas top 5?
Absolutely.
Sure. Top 8 at 7, 8 at worst? Of course. No doubt. Won't argue with any of it. Number 1?
It's too much.
Were you surprised that this is the first time they've been preseason number 1 in the AP?
Yeah.
I would have never guessed that. Who was number 1 the year Vince came back?
SC.
I guess that kind of makes sense.
SC.
Oh, yeah, because they were wire to wire that year, and then Texas beat them.
They didn't stink.
No, they were good. It was a good football team.
You think?
I'm just trying to think of some of the other teams, like some of the Ricky Williams teams. I'm surprised him coming back wouldn't have been number 1.
No, that's why I think that there's this real strange disconnect with Texas. And I look, as someone that grew up a Longhorn fan, there's a little bit of a disconnect where the perception of how good they've been is a little bit overstated. Michigan, for example, same situation. Yes, okay, they've been very good for a very long time. They have more wins than anybody in the history of college football. All that can be true, but we must also acknowledge and recognize that Michigan had one co-national championship prior to when they won it 2 years ago, had won in 60 years. Winning natties is different. And Texas has 4 in their history. So for whatever, and they have 1 since 1970, and that was in 2005 with a transcendent quarterback. So I grew up a Longhorn fan. So I know the battle that was Texas, but at the top of the sport, the absolute tippy top of the sport, it hasn't always been great. Now, they've won a lot of games. They have tremendous resources, but as far as having done it, having accomplished it, it's not always, the expectation doesn't always actually equal the results to an extent.
Sure.
That's not knocking them. It's just an acknowledgement of fact.
No, and a lot of it makes sense, and you can see where people would go either way with it. But one place that they should definitely go is Bromberg's.
Well, Bromberg's is great. It's where I've been going for a very long time. They're actually renovating the Mountain Brook Village store to improve your experience. It's amazing to know that it's still going to be open, but man, the elevated experience that you're going to get when you walk in the door when they finish this renovation will take that shopping experience to the next level. The sales staff's incredible. The amount of inventory is amazing. You have so many different options, so many different beautiful pieces of jewelry that will be in your family for multiple generations. You want a diamond? Perfect. Bromberg's is the spot to go get a natural diamond that is beautiful and will stand the test of time. So go and check them out in Mountain Brook Village and at the Summit. It's Bromberg's.
All right, when we come back, we'll continue going around the SEC, give you more updates around camps next right here on Jocks. Tuesday, August 12th, right here on Jocks, Smack and Cube in the morning, 9:42. Listen live online, jocksfm.com. Grab the app in your app store, iPhone, Android. You can always download that for free.
Bill Smith Buick GMC is the GMC Dealer of the Year, the national champion of GMC dealers. 5 national championships they've won. You understand why the second you go up there and experience exactly what it is that you want to experience, man, that's second to none service, second to none selection, and the deals are off the charts good. $14,000 off a GMC Sierra SLT. You can get $5,000 off a Buick Encore GX, sporty, economical SUV. You can get it for under $25,000. It's deals like that keep people coming back. That's why 75% of their business is repeat customers. That's because you have a better experience when you shop with Bill Smith. Take the short drive up to Coleman. You'll be glad you did. You can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at BillSmithBuickGMC.com.
All right, so let's continue going around the SEC. We heard from Sark a little bit earlier about how practice went that particular day, but what about the recent scrimmage that the Horns had?
You know, I was really pumped about Cedric Baxter Saturday. That he fired me up, man. He ran hard. He ran physical. That was encouraging. Derek Williams was another guy. He had his best day, which was day 9, and both those guys coming off of those injuries. So those were probably the 2 biggest guys that excited me the most coming out of it. There was other guys that had highlight plays. Aaron Butler had a bunch of catches. Anthony Smith has had a great camp. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that way. You know, I think Murad Watson, Alex January looked really good. I think we only had 2 guys didn't finish the scrimmage, and that was Nick Brooks and Nick Townsend, and both of them were both practiced all day today and were great. So nothing serious.
All right, so that's Steve Sarkisian on the scrimmage. C.J. Baxter comes back and is good. Man, that 1-2 punch with him and Wisner could be dangerous for other teams. Speaking of running backs, Billy Napier asked about Jaden Ball. We've tried to warn you guys about this young man. This is his response.
Really, I think early in his career, not much expected from him. I think he probably doubted himself, just having conversations with him. And he had been here 6 months, I think, when we got here. And then his development process started. So I'm really, really good route runner. He has unique ball skills. But he's got a great attitude. He's got good energy. He's fun to be around. I think he's a smart player. I just think overall he's very unique for his size to be able to be that explosive.
All right, so that's Billy Napier on Jaden Ball. Going to Fayetteville, Arkansas, Travis Williams on defensive depth and how unique it might be for his group this year.
We have more pieces. We have a lot of ingredients, right? And we have to cook the meal. We got to put the ingredients in the right spot for the meal can be right. But we have the ingredients. Now we got to make sure, okay, it's not mildew, right? Or it's not spoil. What that means, okay, if it's not our standard, if they're not getting to the ball, they're not playing a physical brand of ball, that's not part of our ingredients. So we have the right pieces. We just have to put it all together. So it's been a good deal.
All right, so we mentioned some of that defensive tackle depth with Camp Ball dinged up earlier in camp for Arkansas. Could be a problem, G-Mac, but sounds like Travis Williams likes the depth that his Arkansas defense contains right now.
I think that's a good spot to be in because that was the one thing we were absolutely wondering about, right? Was how deep, how good, how talented. If they lost a guy, could they overcome that loss? That's a question mark for me. I think they had good moments last year. There were also some moments, though, a la against Ole Miss, where it's like, what the heck happened? You know what I mean? So biggest thing for me is constantly going to be about the secondary's growth and improvement. Because secondary has been a real struggle for a long time. If that group can be better, I'm cautiously optimistic. But if they are the same as what they've been, it could be problematic, especially without a terror rushing the passer like they had a year ago in Landon Jackson.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. Also, on the last scrimmage, Travis Williams, Arkansas defensive coordinator, how he felt his group fared.
Yeah, so Saturday scrimmage, what we got to do defensively as a whole is just start fast. Got to start a lot faster. Our twos started off, and we didn't start off like we should, right? Not to our standards. The ones go out there and they get a 3 and out, and the next drive was a four and out, and then the third down, it was a 3rd and 16, and we gave up an explosive pass. So we got to do better there. Our energy and how you scare offenses is not about the play calls. It's just people just smothering the ball. Right, so we have to get to the ball like our life depends on it every snap, no matter who's out there. The 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, it doesn't matter. It's just a standard of defense.
So that's Travis Williams on that Arkansas defense. We'll have more from around the Southeastern Conference. On the other side, first, Damian, tell our listeners how they could be a part of the Jocks kickoff.
Yeah, celebrate the kickoff to the college football season with us at the Bill Smith Buick GMC Jocks kickoff party at Regents Field on Thursday, August 21st. And the only way to go is by winning tickets. This week is the last week of qualifying. So today, to enter to win a pair of tickets for you and a guest, text the keyword GO and your full name to 205-834-9450. Again, the keyword is GO and your full name to 205-834-9450. Winners are drawn and notified daily. For more information, visit jocksfm.com.
All right, when we come back, we'll wrap up today's show with a little more from around the SEC and our final thoughts on the first AP poll for this year. Next on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. If you missed any of the show, go catch it again on YouTube or get the podcast at jocksfm.com. We talked a little bit about Auburn quarterbacks before you came in today, Greg. Greg had first day of school for his kids, so he missed first portion of the show. This is Kent Austin, Auburn quarterback coach, discussing the progress of Jackson Arnold in that room.
Benefiting from the fact that we really focused in on what we thought we were going to do well as an offense. We carried that through the offseason, through the spring, through the summer. They got a lot of repetitions on similar concepts. It doesn't necessarily mean that we line up the same way, but conceptually it's the same stuff, right? And I think they've benefited a lot from that. Obviously, we will game plan more specifically, right, for Baylor. But I think our quarterbacks at this stage are handling the offense pretty well. They're making pretty quick decisions, getting the ball out of their hand. They've got good skill, which is helping. Defense is throwing a lot at us, and they've adjusted pretty well. Every day is something new, right, that we have to contend with offensively and that they have to contend with, behind the center. So pretty pleased where they're at right now.
Have to feel good, Greg, about the defense adding a little bit more, doing a little bit more. At least for me, that's been a concern, and getting the ball out on time. And Christian Clemente told us earlier in the show that there were still some times that hesitation was a small issue for Jackson Arnold, but consistently, I think the messaging has been that he has been on time with most of what he's been asked to do,
which is great. I mean, that's ideal. That's what you want. And if you are progressing in that area, that's been an area of concern from the past. I don't think there's a whole lot to be concerned about, but we had kind of heard the opposite. Sound like he was being a little more decisive. Sound like he was taking some risks, which is what I want to hear, considering the last thing that we want to see, especially maybe with the offensive line, is still a work in progress at the moment. Probably be pretty helpful to get to the point and where you're just cutting it loose and trusting your guys. So with that group of wide receivers, trust it. I mean, if they're covered, they're open, rip.
Well, it can be helpful to have 4 dealerships in one destination, unmatched selection and savings when searching for a new vehicle. Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 in Vestavia. From sales to service, the team at Royal can help you find that new ride to keep you rolling. When it's time to start searching for your next vehicle, all 4 stores in one location means you can get behind the wheel for a test drive without driving all over town. When they say for every ride there's Royal, they mean it. If you're shopping for that very first ride or your dream ride, go see my friends at Royal Buick GMC, Royal Volkswagen, Royal Automart, Volvo Cars of Vestavia Hills, all at the corner of I-65 and Highway 31 of Vestavia, online at royalautomotive.net. Did not ad-lib the majority of that. Did ad-lib a small portion of that.
Look at you.
For the most part, stuck to the script there.
Stay
for
hot.
That read. AP poll. Biggest issue you had, Texas being number 1?
Probably Texas won. I think A&M at 19's outrageous.
Too low?
Yeah, they with what they have back, I'm real optimistic about how they're going to be built. I think Auburn being 38 is ridiculous. I think SC being 30 is crazy. Other than that, I mean, it's not bad. I mean, those are kind of the main. Baylor being 28 to me feels a little bit.
Yeah, I never know what to
ridiculous.
make of when they get to the teams after number 25, those receiving votes, because I don't know how many people just kind of shut it down after that.
And they might, but
yeah, it's one thing we probably should have asked Ralph is like, how did you used to view teams after number 25? Like, okay, they got some votes, but do you think most people get to 25 and they're just like, who cares? Just write some teams down. Like, did they win this week? Great. You're 28. Doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't know what the viewpoint is for a lot of people. Now, some of those got votes in the actual top 25.
Right.
So that's why they're viewed the way that they are. You can be viewed in a better way. You can see things in a better way, more clearly from Game Day Men's Health. If you are looking to lose weight, if you're looking to get rid of brain fog, if you're looking for better sleep, better energy, Game Day Men's Health can help you. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. Sign up for a free consultation. See, I got off script there, and that's why you missed the word. You got to stick to, you can ad lib. Free consultation with a free PSA test, free testosterone test. They'll give you a baseline of your health, let you know where you are, tell you what they can do for you. Mention Mac and Cube and save 10% on any service that they offer at Game Day Men's Health. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today and see what they can do for you. Appreciate Paul Feinbaum, Christian Clemente, Ralph Russo joining the show. Tomorrow we're going to go to Starkville, catch up with Steve Robertson there on how things are going for Mississippi State. And as we do every 8 o'clock hour of every day, we'll go around the SEC, give you updates from camp, let you know what we think the coaches really mean based on what they're saying in some of the pressers after practice. Ty Simpson, your starter at Alabama. Greg says that's good. So you should all be at ease for the rest of the day. And just whatever you do, try not to ad-lib your day because we know what happens when you do. You become boring, and nobody wants to be boring. Don't ad-lib, don't be boring, and everything will work itself out. 3-Man Front next. We're back tomorrow, 7 to 10 a.m.